Good afternoon, everyone. I, CS Ankita, take this opportunity to welcome you all once again to the 26th webinar of the Master Knowledge Series EEE Enable, Evaluate, Excel. At the outset, I'd like to give you a brief on this initiative of ICSI. The Master Knowledge Series, which was launched at the 24th National Conference of Practicing Company Secretaries held on 16th and 17th of June 2023, is an attempt to guide our CS professionals into brushing up their existing knowledge and making them privy to the recent amendments that have taken place in the regulatory and legislative arena. The series comprises of weekly webinars on topics of professional interest. Till date, 25 webinars have been conducted on various provisions of Companies Act, SEBI laws, and other areas relevant to CS profession, and we look forward to conducting many more in the future. Today's webinar is themed at yet another very pivotal topic and one that has gained traction in recent times, that is ESG and role of company secretaries. Dear participants, buyers today are more socially conscious than ever and are even ready to pay more for sustainable products. Although the acronym ESG was first used in a UN report in the year 2004, there has been a manifold increase in internet searches for this term since the year 2019. Organizations across industries and geographical boundaries have been allocating more resources to improve their ESG compliance because investors today are demanding that companies include ESG principles in their corporate governance policies. And that is where the role of company secretary comes in. Company secretaries, being governance professionals, are uniquely positioned to guide the organizations in embedding sustainability considerations into their core operations and decision-making processes. And for a company secretary, this means going beyond the traditional role of complying with regulations and stakeholder communication. It is also pertinent to mention here that the ICSI has constituted an ESG and sustainability board, which has been established to review the emerging trends globally and benchmark the best global practices. Also, the ICSI has brought out a publication on Handbook on Business Responsibility and Sustainability, which is available on the e-cart of the Institute's website. To deliberate further on today's topic, I'd like to welcome our esteemed speaker for the day, CS Kaushik Mukherjee, who is a company secretary and chief legal officer and serves in the rank of executive director of PCBL Limited, a company which is the largest manufacturer and largest exporter of carbon black in India, with an annual turnover of around rupees 5,000 crores. CS Kaushik Mukherjee, a Xaverian, is a national scholarship holder in BCom Honours and also holds the membership of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He has a vast experience of over 3 decades in the corporate sector and is a visiting faculty at the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur. His areas of specialization include corporate governance, risk management, business laws, CSR, and ESG. Welcome, sir. I'm sure the vast experience and expertise of our speaker will prove significantly helpful in the professional journey of our participants, and therefore I request all participants to actively participate in the webinar by sharing your relevant queries in the chat box, which will be taken up in the later part of the session. May I now request CS Kaushik Mukherjee to please lead the session.
Thank you so much. Very good afternoon to all of you. I know it's a busy midweek, and my CS, my brothers in arms, as I call, are all must be busy with their work. And believe in me, same with me. But when this kind of invite comes from the president, and then with Dipa and his team calling me, and institute being so close to me, and close to me for generations, my father also has been a member of this institute. So there is no way I could say no, but every way I had to manage. And right now also, believe in me, I have a lot of things, but still this is priority. And therefore, this time is very important, and I will try to keep it brief for all of us. But at the same time, I would like it to be interactive. As I told before the session, also made a request to the ICSI team that any questions coming on this, I should have an opportunity to address to the best of my ability and should not go unaddressed unless I know that okay, this is beyond me, so I will not take this question. That's a different thing. Now, coming back to the topic, and I think by this time, most of us, almost all of us, know what is ESG. I mean, the importance of ESG, the awakening of ESG has started. I will not say that it has moved from ambition to action. It is still midway there. Ambition is definitely coming very, very, very distinctly, but action is still a far away. And when I say action, not of one or two, four big size companies or 20 big size companies or 500 big size companies, I'm talking on a very, very large scale. That is not what is happening. And that is not happening not only in India, in many countries, it is not happening. But as corporates, I think one thing is very sure, I mean, very evident now that it is no longer a buzzword in the boardroom. It all started like, corporate governance 15, 20 years back, then CSR, and now the new buzzword. Initially it was regarded as a buzzword because it is something which is perhaps not doable. And if it is doable, it is not profitable. And even if it is profitable, it might be totally a change of business, a change of altogether, our business would not be at all sustainable. That feel was there initially. I'm talking of 5 to 8 years, 6 years back. But now, with the passage of time, with huge amount of, I must say, work on this happening, there are a number of consultancy firms, there are a number of, I would say, consultants. They are all, I think, more than equipped now. If you try to get to somebody that we want to start our ESG journey in the organization, or we want to get into this kind of a strategy formulation or policy formulation, and all of them are saying that we are overboard. Most of them are thinking that, well, you have to give us time to come. That is the kind of thirst, the kind of, I'm talking of awakening that is happening, and gradually the action is being taken. Having said that, the buzzword that was there within the rooms of the boardroom now is percolating down. It is moving. And as company secretaries, we also know that anything in a corporate that moves has to have a pressure. Unless there is a pressure, things don't move. Now, this pressure which is happening on ESG front is a multi-flow. It is not coming from one; it is coming from all ends, and it is coming like a tsunami now, if you ask me. And it has become almost inevitable. There is no way one can say that, well, I have got a choice. You don't have a choice. Either you have to be sustainable or you won't be touchable. You will become an untouchable organization in future. And by mean untouchable, I mean for listed companies, your market cap goes down like anything. That's the biggest, I would say, the blow that can come to a listed corporate is when market cap takes a nosedive. And that is definitely going to happen, that if we company secretaries cannot make the board understand, we as company secretaries do not take the responsibility of making the board understand that why ESG is important for the company, and not ESG is something which is to be done by the government or something which should be done by the society. Or I will cycle to office, I'll not use plastic bottles. All these things are good. But on a larger front, on a really meaningful front, this has to be done for the business to be there. And this will be more and more evident as the days go. I have a presentation. I will go through that presentation. But before that, I just wanted to make this thing very clear that I personally feel, and I have seen it through my experience in the organization for more than 30 years in this group, that company secretaries can do many things. It is like just knowing yourself is the first thing of a wisdom, that what you can do. I think company secretaries can do this better than anybody. Even I say this quite often, that you don't want to be an engineer to know how to control an E, because it doesn't always mean that you have to be an engineer to know that. Well, that is something else we will discuss when I go through the slides. But I think the association of a company secretary with the board, the proximity that he enjoys, nobody else enjoys, no other employee enjoys, no other executive enjoys, that the proximity the company secretary has with the board. And there is no doubt, nobody can dispute that. There is no argument. It is a proven fact that your proximity is the closest. And how do you then use that proximity to the ability to drive the sustainability in the organization? You have to use that nexus, basically, one company, because sustainability or corporate governance, whatever is the the force you want to drive, whatever things you want to drive, whether it's corporate governance or it is ESG or sustainability. Now there is a difference between ESG and sustainability, which again I will discuss in my slide. But I'm just using the word ESG now because that's what has been written: ESG and role of CS in ESG. Now, neither of them can be driven in any organization unless it is driven by the board. It is never ever down top. It's always top down. The force, the reckoning, the drive has to come from the board level. And the company secretary, having the closest nexus with the board, can do that. That is what I wanted to discuss with my brothers in company secretaries, setting the context before I go to the presentation, which really contains more of what we felt in our journey rather than something which is more of a book type, I would say article type. No, it is more of a experience that we are. Is it done? Okay. Now, is it viewable now? The
Yes,
presentation
sir. Yes, sir.
clear? Yeah.
Clear.
Fine. So this first or two slides will be basically overview and friends, but this is the slide where I want you all to have a look. We all know this. It's nothing new, but just again, since we are discussing ESG, we have to also know the breakup of ESG in this. Now, the understanding of E, S, and G, if we see the environmental factors, it basically talks of energy management, if you ask me. Now, energy management is a large part of it. Now, by energy management, what we mean is the fact that any production process for any big scale manufacturing industry, you name cement, you name steel, you name aluminium, you name our industry, carbon black, or the mother of all, thermal coal. All of these have huge amount of emission of carbon dioxide, which is basically called the greenhouse gas. Along with that, more harmful one, methane. So, but the quantum methane is very little compared to carbon dioxide. So that is the GHG part of emission, which is something which needs to be managed. And the whole world, and we must be hearing every day, something or the other is talking on how to manage this. So basically, environment factors would mean largely energy management. That is one fact. The other big factors which we normally miss out is the water management. It is not only the air we are talking of, which is energy management, emissions, air pollutions. It is also a huge amount of water pollution which happens. And if you see the industries, the way they are going ahead, plethora of industries coming up, flouting norms. And a time was there when there was a concept called pollute and pay. You pollute on one hand, you go on paying on another hand, fines. But that is not what should be the path forward now. It has to be stopped and it has to stop. That is one way of stopping. But the other way is how do you use the water? You require certain scale of water. If you have an industry in a state called Gujarat, then you will understand what is the price of water. Abundance in one state is total dearth in another. And industry running without water is unthinkable. Therefore, the question comes how you can manage that water means reusing that water, recycling that water, or reducing the use of that water. So that is water management. The other big element of this is waste management. So environment would be energy management, water management, and waste. Waste, we all know. the amount of waste that comes out, untreated waste, undiluted waste. Various norms are there, but those norms again remain in books. In actual practice, those things are not happening to the extent it should happen. There is a treatment, storage, disposal form. There are laws. There are so many bodies working in taking the waste from you and reusing it. So waste management is another area. So basically energy, water, and waste. Now the second most, because ESG, I think another thing, rather these are all conceptions, or I don't know, misconceptions. We always feel ESG is highly on E, somewhat on S, and somewhere medium is G. So if somebody gives a weightage, somebody will say, well, 60% is E, and somewhere around 25 maybe G, and 15 is social. Social is always kept at a lower level. It's a normal. If you even talk to anybody, if you random, we have done it. We have done it through our organization, right? We have created our own policy. We have crafted our own policy. We call it co-crafting the policy, meaning together we create a policy, sustainable policy. Because a policy for an organization cannot be dictated from the top and then percolated down. Idea from the top, awakening from the top, force from the top, drive from the top, but embodiment in the DNA of the organization, in the culture of the organization. And that can only happen if all the employees are aligned to the vision of the organization. And there lies the important that when we have done this survey over across more than 1,500, 1,200 employees, including casual contractual laborers, what we found is that awareness level was low, to admit the fact. 5 years back when we did the survey and 2 years back, there has been a huge, increase in the awareness level. However, it still remains conception or misconception, perception or misperception, we don't know. But that perception or misperception, whatever you call it, is heavily in favor of E. Very strangely, social is having a lowest weightage. But when you go to the rating agencies, whether it's an MSCI or a Dow Jones or EcoBodies or even our own CRISIL homegrown, all of them give huge weightage to the social factor. Because it is important to understand the human assets are the greatest assets. When you acquire an organization, you value the assets, the physical assets. After acquisition, when you try to run the company, then you ascertain, then you understand what is the value of the people that you have taken of that organization. Can you value those people who is heading the operations, the legal, the company secretary, the CFO? What is their work when you do a due diligence? Any of the biggest of big firms? So that there lies the importance of the social factor, the human factor, the human factor and the human factor. Both the human and the human are there in the social factor. One of the most important things is the diversity. Here I'm not talking of only gender diversity. By diversity, everybody talks of only gender diversity. People going gaga on gender diversity. But we are talking of diversity as a whole. It's diversity and inclusion. Cross-cultural appreciation, cross-cultural diversity. You have a plant in India, you have a plant in Europe, you have a plant in some other country. You have to have all of them together drive the organization. So the diversity factor is very important, how the organization is considering whether it's an organization which has a diverse culture, whether culturally that company is well equipped on the social score. Then the big factor also is the supply chain, which comes under this social factor. Employees obviously would come under this social factor. The well-being of the society will come under this social factor. Another factor which is not being shown here, which I always include in the social factor, is the research and innovation. It's a part of the social factor. There's so much of work is being done on the sustainability aspect, and making sustainably focused organization sustainably driven organizations are actually more profitable than non-sustainably driven organizations. To bring that out, R&I is doing a great job. R&I is doing such a good job that we are now understanding the value that an organization can drive sustainability and profitability together, and sustainability and profitability are not in two different directions. Somebody says, I recall, it's an oxymoron. If you have sustainability, then you can't have profitability. If you have profitability, you can't have sustainability. Just the reverse. They're complementary to each other. They're not competing with each other. So there's no oxymoron here. Oxymoron is in the mindset. Now, the other is, of course, we all know, of course, here will be the working conditions, the child labor. There'll be so many other factors in the social ratio. There'll be even when you go to the NASDAQ grading, you'll find that they even take the pay ratio, the KMP compensation ratio, the POSH, the whistleblowers, everything would come into the social factors. Now, when the rating agencies come and see the social factors, they would like to see an organization having 1,500 employees, not a single case of POSH, not a single case of whistleblowing. Yes, it can so happen. What is the big worry on that? We are that organization. Fine. If you are that organization, show me your way of capturing the information. How are you capturing that information that an employee who has faced a case of POSH is easy enough for him or her to register the complaint? Or how open is the organization to take a whistleblower complaint? Or can somebody blow the whistle in an organization seamlessly, effortlessly? What is the procedure of making them aware and making it easy for them to do? They want to go deep down into that and find out. Just by showing the record, nil is not the way an agency is going to rate you. So record keeping is one, literally is one, but spiritually, ethically, what you are doing, that is what they want to know. Now, the other is, of course, we have been driving this for long, corporate governance or governance factors. There, I think we have championed it, and there is no doubt that we have been doing a good job. Indian corporates largely are found to be very that way. Governance factors ratings are quite high. Even the rating agencies from outside, if you see the way they have rated our corporates on the governance factors, on an average, it is quite high. In spite of the fact they have certain ways of measuring the governance factors, which is not the way we do it. Like if they find an independent director is in the board for more than 5 years, then they don't really consider him to be independent, although our law allows it to be for 10 years. Similarly, if they find the directors have continued before that rule of 10 years came, when there was no time limit of continuing in the board as independent director, and they calculate that time also and they see that it is crossing 10 years, then they say, well, in the report they say that will not consider them to be really independent, and therefore the score on governance comes down. But in spite of that, in general, the score of governance across certain sectors which I have been following, particularly the automobile sector in which we are operating, I found the score on the governance, both at the tire level, at the carbon black level, and at the cars, the automobiles, we found that these ratings of governance are much higher compared to social and environmental as well. Now, another challenge in the social factor is when we talk of gender diversity, they put a lot of weightage on that. Well, today we have independent women directors. That is something very important which goes into the governance factor. But when it comes to social factors, the employees, female employees, well, there are certain challenges. You just can't compare a manufacturing industry located in a remote place, in one remote corner, to have lot many female workers, than a software industry, I mean, software company, or for that matter, a services company, a hotel, or a hospital, or for that matter, IT company. Obviously, their gender diversity would be much higher. Having said that, it is also important that when you're having a manufacturing industry and you are supposed to employ also give opportunities to the female workers, the working conditions, the health and hygiene, which again comes into the social factor, safety, health factors. There, what is your score? Whether you have adequate facilities for a woman worker to work in an organization, she will be having some separate, requirements. Whether the manufacturing industry or the corporate is meeting that or not. So improvements are required at the corporate level as well to make a good score on the social factor. But this factor, what is very important is unnecessarily the conception is that it is given less weightage, which is not the case. So basically, these are the ESG breakups on which the focus is on. And if you see all this, read all this, you would find that almost the entire of working of the organization, all the capitals which we consider like human capital, the intellectual capital, the manufactured capital, the social capital, and the finance capital, all are covered in this. So that is the good about ESG. It almost covers everything. Now, if I say finance capital, you might say, where is the profitability you are showing here? Well, that's the difference I would like to make between sustainability and ESG. Yes, you are right. Neither in E, nor in S, nor in G, the word profitability you will find. Because it is not coming. Because the profitability is a result. It's an outcome. It's an outcome of E plus S plus G. So if you really drive a corporate governance board or a board of directors or the organization culture or the DNA is really ESG driven and is working on each of these buckets, E, S, and G, and having a good score, it is bound to be profitable. It is bound to be profitable. And if it is bound to be profitable, then the outcome would be profitable. And if the outcome is profitable, then the company becomes sustainable because nobody can sustain without profit, no doubt. No doubt, a company will sustain only when there is profitability. But if you drive E, S, and G, you will arrive at profit. And if you arrive at profit, you become sustainable. So my definition of sustainability would be sustainability is equal to ESG plus profitability. But this profitability is profitable growth for all, PGA. That's how I define profitability here. Profitability not for the stakeholders getting dividend, not for the stakeholders to getting a higher market cap. Again, that is a result. It is profitable growth for all. Employees, society, the vendors, the customers, everybody. So then only you will have a sustainable organization in a nutshell. Now, if you see NASDAQ reporting guide 2, how they have divided E, S, and G, it is more or less, you can find out from there. Well, ours is more of a, overview. But if you come here, you will find penetration, deep diving, going deep into how do you measure it. Like very, very interesting is the CEO pay ratio, gender pay ratio, employee turnover, which you call the attrition rate, gender diversity, temporary worker ratio, non-discrimination, injury rate. So further, if you see the environmental, it doesn't mean energy management and water management and waste management. It goes further down into energy intensity. The word is intensity. How much is required for what? Climate oversight board, climate risk mitigation. Similarly, in governance, incentivized pay, supplier code of conduct. This another challenge area is a supplier code of conduct. Many companies face that challenge. We'll come to it when we go for life cycle assessment, why this is so important. In product life cycle, we'll see to it why this is so important. And of course, the DSP disclosure practices and ESG reporting. Just again, we are breaking E, S, and G and trying to understand or getting into the aspect that it can be profitable and sustainable. Role of company secretary. Now, the traditional role of company secretaries, I've told you, company secretaries for generations. Personally, I am, so I know the traditional role of company secretaries, even I think 2 generations or 1 generation before. The role always have been board, share stakeholders, basically shareholders. Communication, managing, referring to the law and the compliance. And now today, of course, it's a huge task for a company secretary. Compliance is no longer a small word saying, what is your job? My job is compliance. What is that compliance? We all know what level it is now. Every second day, there is a circular and interpretation, circular and interpretation. One circular of 13 July 2023 for listed companies, everybody knows. For the one circular of 13 July of 2023 has flooded the stock exchange with disclosures. People are disclosing even 20 rupees penalty. Somebody was supposed to keep differentiated buckets for keeping plastics and non-plastics. And he has not kept one. He has been fined some 1,000 rupees. Even that has been disclosed to the stock exchange. So we are passing to an age of, I think, mind-boggling disclosures. If you went the stock exchange side, everybody putting something or the other every day. I have been fined. I have been given a show cause notice. And sometimes it is not even required. Amount hasn't been determined as such. Even the show cause notice amount has been put. 27 crores show cause notice for GST, IGST, whatever it is. Everything will live in an age of disclosure. So traditional role, by saying traditional role of company secretaries, we cannot just put it, well, it is a traditional. No, it's an emerging role. It's an emerging role. And today the compliance is totally, not a one person's job. It's a team's job. Even best of legal brains are finding it difficult. So what will happen in this case? Will it be required to be disclosed or not? Does it cross the material threshold limit or not? Does it coming into the concept of whether there is an order which is determining the amount or not? So it will be very wrong on our part just put it in bracket and the traditional role of company, a big role, and the role that is played by the company secretaries today, I think, is enormous. And those company secretaries in employment, I think they know it better than anybody. The kind of pressure, the kind of compliance pressure, time-bound compliance pressure. If you have to do a pledge, you have to do it within 3 days. If you do a listing, or do it within 48 hours, 37 hours, 72 hours. If this incident happens within the organization, 12 hours. Outside the organization, 24 hours. Within the, immediately after board meeting, 30 minutes. It is sometimes people are not even thinking of going to sleep because the time will go. It is working on the health of the professionals. It is working on the health of the compliance team. Because deadlines are not set based on what is the situation. Deadlines are just set. There are interpretational issues as well. So the role of company secretaries is huge. And along with that, a company secretary being of the fact that he is the closest insider to the company. I always call the company secretary the closest insider. No one is a more insider than a company secretary. So his, again, proximity to the board, his proximity to the board because of his efficiency, his competence. Today, everybody looks at the company secretary for the advice. Every board member who joins, he knows that this is the person to be contacted. In a case, I have any doubts on anything which is happening in the organization or even outside the organization. We get calls from directors in another company is having this problem. What is my view or your view on this? So company secretary actually becomes an advisor. So because of this role that he enjoys, and he enjoys because of his efforts, the trust he has built, the confidence he has built, with his board and the board members. And board members are not the same board members. They will all stay for 5-10 years. Then again, they will change. Some of them might even change in between. You get new set of boards. You have to develop your new relations with them. You have to gain their confidence. They must be your first point of contact in everything that is happening in the company. In everything that is happening in the company, you are the first point of contact. Once you develop that, I think the rest is a great journey for a company secretary. One is to develop that, and more important is to sustain that. You are the first point of contact. You are being called for everything, but you have to sustain it, that you are being called and you will continue to be called for everything. And then it becomes a journey where you can spread the message of many things which you want to happen. In fact, you can drive sustainability. That's what I said, through the lens of the stakeholders. You have to identify what are the requirements of ESG. ESG, now we have understood E, S, and G. But which are the drivers of ESG? Any organization cannot have all those 36 elements as its drivers. Then you drive nothing. You have to be focused. You can't pick up everything and say that I am driving ESG and all the 36 parameters given, on all the SDG goals given, on all the NASDAQ has said, I'm driving everything. Then you are not driving anything actually. You have to be focused and understand which are the things which you need to be driving. But who will determine that? Not the CS. No. The CS is not going to determine that. He has to facilitate determining it. He is to act as a facilitator that it gets determined. It gets determined through the lens of the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders would be, one of the main is your own shareholders. The large financial institution holdings that you have, some of the retail investors that you have, the banks and the FIs that you have, these are the persons through whose lens you have to see what should be my organization's ESG drives. Who else? Customers. Very important. End of the day, any business will be profitable provided he has a smiling, satisfied, and a customer will always refer you as his first preferred buyer. I mean, the seller, his first preferred seller. So he will always come to you to buy the things, and you will be always first preferred by him. So to get that customer, you must understand what he perceives as your ESG drive, what he considers. Similarly, the suppliers, the other side, vendors, you have to understand, you meaning this has to be determined by a committee which can be formed, or there may be a pool of people, or you can take even hire a consultant who will help you independently ascertain from them that what do you think about this organization and what do you think are the ESG drivers of this organization, particular organization. Now, through the stakeholders, meeting the stakeholders, like the shareholders, employees, customers, vendors, even the society around the factories. The people living around the factories, they also give a lot of inputs about the ESG drives which are required of the organization. But it will be very honest, very transparent, without any bias. The challenge is the biasness in this case. And of course, last but not the least, one of the most important is interaction with the board. And the board here would largely meet the independent directors. The independent directors, what they perceive about the organization, what should be, according to them, the ESG drivers. So all these elements together will tell us which will be the focus areas for driving ESG in an organization, which actually in the parlance of ESG formulation of policy or strategy are called material topics. Material topics. Now, in a study which has been done, and normally it is found out that material topics center around 6 to 7. Some companies are having 8, 11. but no one having 20, 30. It is it varies from, I would say, 6 to 10, largely around 7, 8. And over the study, it shows that what are the areas in which material topics are built in. Of course, one very major material topic which is built, the first one is GHG emissions and energy management. This will be a material topic for most of the industry, because I'm again not talking of IT industry. I'm not talking of a service industry. I'm talking of hardcore manufacturing industry, where ESG matters the most. Because unless you have a challenge on emission, or for that matter, energy management, by social and G, you would be still very, I mean, manageable in one way than a company having a large manufacturing unit of cement, a large manufacturing unit of aluminium, or for that matter, a power plant running on coal firing, or fossil fuel based industries. So their GHG management, or emission management and energy management, is definitely one. If you go through the survey, they will always say, well, that will definitely be one of the areas for control and focus of ESG drive. How we'll do it, what we do it, is the next step. First of all, determining the material topics. And here the company secretaries play a pivotal role in ensuring that the survey is not biased. It covers more or less those who are required to be covered. Key elements are covered. Key shareholders are covered. FIIs are covered. Retail is covered. Major customers are covered. Some stray customers are also taken. Major vendors are covered. Employee survey is done from all the units, and community around the factory, the villages around the factory, the persons living around the factory, they give very clear cut indication of what they want to happen. The other which comes in the material topic is water treatment. It is being seen in most of the companies. This become a material topic, and there are various methods. Some companies, they announce that they have effluent treatment plants. Water is treated before being released. Some announce that not all the units have water treatment plants, and some also announce that there are JLD plants, meaning zero liquid discharge plant. Now, all these can be put, but whether at all it is happening or not, whether it is being followed or not, is something which has to be duly audited and checked. And this is another role which the company secretary can do, and he can ensure that a proper reporting of this is happened, and ensure that this is being put up on a regular basis, because it cannot happen all the factories are JLD in one go. It requires a lot of investment. JLD cannot happen just in one shot. It requires crores of investments to happen. So what is the progress we are doing? How far we have gone in that direction? So this reporting has to be done before whom? Everything doesn't go to the board. Neither it is required to go to the board. The company secretary ensures that there is a separate committee for that, called the sustainability committee, or somebody has called it, I think I fully agree with that, in fact, sustainability and risk management committee. And sustainability and risk management actually go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. And there can be a separate session on sustainability and risk management, but it is something which is extremely good to have one committee, because I think we are required to have a risk management committee as per SEBI LODR. And if that same committee can be called a sustainability risk management committee, that is better. But some companies can keep a separate committee as well. I think there has been some suggestions from Dow Jones of late, and Morgan Stanley, Capital International, MSCI, that to give more focus, can give more focus on sustainability aspect, let's have a separate committee. Even that view is all right, but that is also good. But if you still can have a committee together, then you have a thorough discussion on sustainability and what measures you are taking to mitigate that, And sometimes some opportunities coming from that can also be discussed, because sustainability throws a lot of opportunities. I think it's there slides I can discuss. Time is there. Then what opportunities we have seen when we have driven our sustainability journey. And today we are sitting on some of the good profits which are coming because of the efforts we have taken on ESG. That is what has happened to us. And this has happened. This is actual and factual, and therefore we are confident that it can happen in other organizations as well. And why it should not happen if it happen to us? Now, the other driver for sustainability, which is seen again, is solid waste management. Here, basically, the concept is 3R: reduce, reuse, and recycle. One has to understand that waste reduction finally increase yield and profitability. Similarly, if you recycle waste and reuse it, you are also saving on costs. Today, many companies are making more profits not by increasing prices, because we live in a society where there is a cutthroat competition. We call it oligopoly. Price, if you increase, you lose customers. So how do you increase the margin? By reducing the cost. Call it cost leadership, call it financial leadership, whatever you want to call. But the margin increases, the delta increases not by increasing price, because that you might lose customers. But reducing cost has got nothing to do with anybody, but everything within. I think during COVID, many companies practiced strong ESG practices. Many companies practiced what they never practiced before, never thought of even practices. And some of these practices, they are even continuing now, because they have found that they have increased the delta, they have reduced the cost. So the moment you are reusing, you are recycling, you are reducing actually cost. And therefore, the delta increases, the profitability increases. And I go on saying the same thing, that if you drive ESG, you increase profitability. And these are not oxymorons at all. The fourth factor, which is also a very, very important factor for material topics, and in general, I'm talking of not for any particular industry, this is the common. You will find, if you see a sustainability review report, you will always find the key factors. Some call it the key factors, some call it the ESG drivers, we call it material topics. You will find all this, in most 99% of the cases, centering around these names. They might change the name a little bit. Health and safety may be given some other name, but it remains the fact that health and safety is extremely important as a material topic, because the moment the safety and the health is taken care of, the immediate benefit out of this happens is the maintenance of the plants, the SOPs, the hazards, the risks reduces. Therefore, the man days lost reduces. The unplanned shutdowns reduces. You have shutdown of plants. We all have shutdown, because everything requires a maintenance. You take a leave during 11 days, 30 days annual leave, though company secretaries hardly takes more than 5 days. I know something or the other comes up, so the leave goes for a toss, but you have to take a break. Similarly, plants need a break. They need to be maintained overall. These are called planned shutdowns. But if you follow the health and safety hygiene of the employees and of the plants as well, you will find that this kind of unplanned shutdowns reduces. It helps to increase profitability. It helps to improve the customer image building. The customer would not run away from you, that this is a company which promises to supply and then has an unplanned shutdown. So health and safety standards are extremely important. And they also have a concept called HIRA, which is called hazard identification and risk assessment. You are identified the hazard beforehand. Here, a very important aspect is insurance which it plays. You are all aware, company secretaries, I think, also in many organizations, like in our organization, head the insurance department as well. And that gives a lot of insights into business. One difference between the traditional role of companies and today emerging roles is that a company secretary is not only looking into the compliance, is also a part of the strategic business. He is called for any strategic decision. And since he is a part of the business, his mindset, his thinking is holistic now. He thinks of the business as a whole rather than a compliance factor solely or a legal compliance factor only. So when it comes into that, when insurance is one of those areas which give you a lot of insights into the business risks and the hazards. So if you do a risk assessment beforehand of all your plans strategically, include your insurance companies to do an assessment beforehand of all the plans before they start the process of renewal of insurance, and have it properly done, not run-of-the-mill risk assessment. I can easily see 4 pages risk assessment. By this time, I can tell you that this is to be thrown into the dustbin, because this is nothing but a cut and paste. 4 or 5 insurance companies go and make a risk assessment and give it to you, and you think that everything is fine in your factory. No, these are all cut and paste without even visiting the plant. And if somebody visits the plant physically, and first of all, it cannot be done virtually. It cannot be a laptop assessment. HIDA cannot be a laptop assessment. Therefore, you have to do it. You have to do it going there. It cannot be done sitting in a place. Now, if we go for a physical thing, can it be done in 6 hours? I find reports being generated in 6 hours. Company secretary's role. Health of the organization. Health of the plant. You are not an engineer. You are not supposed to be an engineer. Not required to be an engineer. But you can read a report and find out that this report, can it be done in 6 hours? In a plant which is spread over 60 acres, having both a power unit and a manufacturing unit, and having 5 lines and 3 lines. Is it possible humanly? So it requires complete 2.5 days, and that too, who is the person who is doing it? You have to understand his caliber, his qualification, what he's coming from, his experience. You can always talk to him and find out whether the person is justified enough to do this assessment or not. You don't require to be a risk engineer yourself. You don't require to be I would say, an engineer yourself. By merely talking, you can find out whether he is a person who can be, relied upon, or his report can be taken. This is another way insurance companies gives you insights of what is happening inside the plant. I'm talking particularly of the plant. They can't tell you about the employees or the governance. About the plant, insurance can be a very good tool to use on the health and safety and the condition of the plant. The fifth factor, which normally is another very important factor, is the employee well-being and human rights and community engagement. Again, a material topic. The well-being of the employees. Employees are the greatest assets. There's no doubt about this factor. And if the attrition rate is low in an organization, I think that can be a great factor of measuring the happiness index of an organization. We always try to find out what is the happiness index. There are so many tools which are used by consultants, whether you are a happy organization or not, whether your employees are happy or not. I think the single test can be that what is the attrition of the company. And some of the exit interviews, you also yourself can go through and find out what they're talking about, why they're leaving an organization. Many times people leave, managers don't leave companies. So there is a correction, huge correction you need to do yourself. I mean, your organization need to do. Your HR need to do and find out that why an employee is leaving not an organization, but a manager, but a boss. So attrition rate, employee well-being. Again, employees are extremely good in today ESG drivers. From experience, I tell you that any employee that we take nowadays, mostly that we take is through campus, and we take GTs. And when these GSTs are taken, one day they spend with the management committee of our company, and where I am a member. And when we sit with them, after our interaction, we ask them to raise questions. And again, from my experience, I am saying consecutive 3-4 batches of GTs who are coming from remote areas of the country and educated from good institutes, they are asking questions on ESG. They're saying, you are a X company, your emission is so much. Sir, what is your alternative plan of production? What is your alternative plan of procurement? You are doing CSR, which is required as per law. That is all right. But how is this you are compensating? Are you in a net zero position? Yes, understand your business process is that you cannot change the process. You're trying your best to reduce the emission. Yes, your levels are the best in the country and you are the second or third largest in the world. You are extremely good. Having said that, what else you can do, sir, to bring it at net zero level? Net zero meaning if you are emitting one, you have to do something to reduce emission somewhere or some other place, doing whatever you want so that the carbon dioxide net to the environment is reduced by one. Therefore, you are net zero. So this type of questions are coming from the ESG, and if it is coming today, tomorrow they will refuse to join organizations where they are not following sustainability practices. It's bound to happen. They will stay away from those organizations, and they can afford to do it today. So much opportunities are there. They can afford to do it today that they will not join organizations which are not following ESG practices, who are not having good sustainability practices, who are not rated highly. So employee well-being, employee human rights is another thing where discrimination should not be done. Diversity and inclusion, there should not be any discrimination, whether in promotion, whether in performance appraisal, whether in transfer policies, travel policies, no discrimination. The company should be wide open and should be ensured. And company secretaries can play a good role in that, in making it aware that what are the best practices. May not take the role. Somebody might say, sir, are we supposed to take the role of HR? No. You are not supposed to take the role of HR. You are not supposed to take the role of manufacturing head. You are not supposed to take the head of procurement. You are not supposed to take the head of R&I. You are not supposed to take the head of supply chain. Nowhere. But you are going to be the facilitator. You are going to be the person who are going to share the best practices in any organization with them. You can share those best practices because of your wider knowledge, your understanding of what is happening in the world of sustainability. You can bring all those, read the reports, find out and share with them, and then also find out, not only with them, with the board as well, that these are the best practices. The board might also drive it in the organization because you are keeping the board updated. By board, I primarily mean, again, of course, the board, the larger board, but my focus always has been that the independent directors play a very important role in driving this kind of things. So if you touch base with the independent directors, if you share with them the best practices, I think you are doing a very good job as a CS in driving sustainability and seeing that what is happening on the ground. The sixth material topic is something very important, which we call the product stewardship. By product stewardship, we mean basically that you have to be responsible from your product from cradle to grave, from birth to death of that product. What does it mean? Supposing you are producing product X. X product requires raw material Y. It goes to Z. Y, X, Z. Now you will be responsible for Y also, to the extent whether Y is following ESG practices or not. The raw material that is coming to you, whether has been produced in a sustainable production method, and finally it has come to you following sustainable practices. While you are selling to the customers, you must see that your end product going into the final product finally meets with what? Is it being recycled, reused, or it is being treated, or it is dumped, or it is being creating an environmental hazard end of the day? Then you will be responsible for that. That is called product ownership, product stewardship, responsibility for my product. I am bringing this product in the environment, in the society, in the bigger society. I'll be responsible from the product from zero to end. That's called the life cycle assessment of the product. Many people initially used to say, why should I be responsible? It's procurement's job. They are procuring the raw material. They are giving me. They should be responsible for the procurement processes. I should not be responsible. Similarly, I'm selling product to Y. Y is using it. Y should be responsible for that product. Why I should be responsible? You're right. Y also will have sustainable practices. Y also would have a sustainability review report. Y also should have a rating. Similarly, X should also, I mean, the supplier should also have, the customer should also have. That doesn't stop you from the responsibility of ensuring that they are doing or not. Whether they are doing and what they are doing has to be looked into and reported to you also. You must report that my vendor X, in spite of best efforts, are complying with this. However, there are gaps in this. That is called reporting disclosure. You have to disclose exactly the fact. You cannot say, no, I cannot comment because it's his job, his responsibility, because you are producing the product. You are asking him to supply this raw material to you. So you have a responsibility for that raw material generation in the system or in the environment. Otherwise, this raw material will not have been generated. You are generating it. And if it is a fossil oil or crude oil based, all the responsibility on you. The challenge is most of these refiners, the large ones, I mean, a couple of years back, they didn't pay any heed to us. Now they are. They're coming back. They're writing supplier code of conduct. They're signing. They're taking, time in explaining what they're doing. Similarly, we are feeling a lot of pressure from the customers saying that, what are you doing? Today, the buzzword is because sustainability is a driver. As I told you initially, started with the stakeholders. The customers also are demanding it. The vendors are demanding it. Each one of us are saying that, what are your sustainability practices? We have got, customers, many customers outside India, and they want to engage with us that the sustainability practices you are doing in your business, please share with us. What is your plan for further reduction? When we say our plan is for further reduction, say 15% is your plan for further reduction of emission by 2030 or 2035. They're saying this will not do. You have to break it up year-wise and with your plans. This is called actually SBTI, Science-Based Target Initiatives. No greenwashing. No greenwashing. All the greenwashing will come up now, because the moment the rating agencies will come and rate you, say, where is your SBTI details? Now, once these SBTI details you are given, it's like a recording in the minutes. Next board meeting, you will be asked what you have told in the last meeting. So you make a presentation in one board. After two boards, the board comes back and says, hey, you made a presentation. This is going to happen. What is the update? It's all recorded. Similarly, SBTI, it's recorded. Now, what will happen if I don't do the rating agencies? The most important thing, which is the market cap. They will shy away from you. They will not invest in you. And if they don't invest in you, what happens, So it is something like that. Now, some might say it is being a pressure being put on us. Let us know, don't go into that debate. There's a huge debate which says the US, Europe, and all these, they are dictating the terms. There's nothing called dictating the terms. We have to do it on our terms, but we have to do it. There is no alternative to that. Just by passing the buck or putting the responsibility back to them, that they have not done it for so many years, just because we and China and other Japan are developing, they are putting all this pressure on us. Well, it is a truth, it's a fact. But the fact also is that we have to live up to the expectation of our generation and generation next. As the definition of sustainability, we should not use something compromising the needs of the future. So that is our responsibility. It's not to be dictated by anybody. And therefore, company secretaries have a moral role also. It's a very important moral role also to play to ensure that it is driven. And last but not the least, of course, is the material topic called leadership and governance. In leadership and governance, it is very important to understand what I feel is that today, what good thing has happened, particularly as regards ESG, is that inclusion of women director in the board. Inclusion of a woman director in the board has changed the very discussion level of the board. From numbers, it has moved to non-numbers. From being only number driven to it has become number plus driven. Today, topics like sustainability, topics like ESG, topics like cyber security, topics like whistleblowing, topics like corporate social responsibility are widely being discussed thanks to the drive being done by the women directors in the board largely. One perhaps is not enough. Perhaps one is not enough. Maybe we would require a couple more. And that again is something which is definitely going to happen. I know there's a huge dart. There's a huge dart in 2024, but this is something which has happened. And I think many of the company secretaries in employment would be with me in this, that the women in the boards have changed the very discussion. And it has been a very welcome change which has come. And I would also, like to have them more and more availability, right? And at the same time, right now, I think there's a huge dart, and we all know there is a huge dart. PSUs are going almost without any so-called, independent directors. Many cases they are having like that. Even in big companies, it will be a challenge in the next year. Other thing is having them in some core committees, sustainability and risk management committee. Obviously, their presence would be a great contribution. So, on leadership and governance can be another material topic. Now, these material topics are actually called the ESG drivers, or they also are called the key drivers. Because once you fix these are my material topics, then you break it further down. What steps you are going to take to reduce this? So what you normally do is you put action plans after this, and the action plans for reduction of energy, action plans for gender diversity, for action plans for training of employees, action plan for waste management, action plan for water treatments. So all these are further broken down, and then you give deadlines by which date you will be able to achieve what percentage. There lies actually the challenge, because if you put dates like 2030 without even knowing what is your action plan. So action plan should not be a date like 2030 sitting in 2024. You should give an action plan 24 end, 25 beginning, or 25 end, then 26 end, but with clear-cut, measurable action plans, and then follow-up action on that. That should be an internal document, need not be published. It's nothing to be published anywhere, but internal document driving force, sitting with the Sustainability and Risk Management Committee and determining what is happening, and then calling the stakeholders, the champion, the persons who champion. We have got a sustainability champion committee where we put in people who will be championing particular aspects of ESG drives. Somebody will be championing the training. Somebody will be championing the waste management areas. Somebody will be championing the energy management core areas. So we ask them to come and make a presentation before the Sustainability and Risk Management Committee. What happens? These people come and interact with the independent directors in the board. So it gives a different kind of feeling to them that they are meeting the board. Perhaps they would have never imagined in their life they would make a presentation before the board, and that happens from people not at the chief of operations level, at the middle level, who are drivers. We normally take the drivers at the young level who can really drive. Age group maybe in the level of general manager, senior manager level, and they are coming making a presentation. And they are taking input from the directors directly. And again, they're coming after a few months or maybe a year, they're coming making another presentation that this is what I have achieved. But the person who's playing this role, holding it and making it happen is the CS. And he can do it. He can do it very well. And perhaps he can do it the best than anybody else. Bringing all of them together and making it happen because of the sustainability and risk management. So this is how really the material topics are determined. Now, the policy development of a sustainability policy development largely depends, as I told you, on two factors. Basically, the ESG drivers that we have done and what stage of the organization it is right now, based on which the policy is formed. Many times the policy, in our case, we co-crafted the policy. First, we made the policy, we ran through the policy throughout the organization, we took the inputs, and then we finally brought out a policy which we placed before the independent directors, broadly, the independent directors, and then SRM, means Sustainability and Risk Management meetings were held, and finally a shape was given. The policy should imbibe the drives, the material topics. That is very important. And you must have a sustainability vision statement created. Sustainability vision statement created, which will be the company vision. Some companies have a company vision statement in which sustainability is imbibed. Some companies have company vision statement and separately sustainability vision statement. But it is just like today you are having a sustainability report and annual report, exactly like that. But tomorrow you won't have two reports. You will have one report, which is called the integrated report, in which you have the financial numbers as well as the ESG numbers. And the 5 capitals I said will get merged into that: the financial capital, the human capital, the intellectual capital, social capital, and the human capital. So these 5 capital in manufactured capital, these all 5 capitals will get merged into one report, which is called integrated report, which will be annual report plus sustainability report. But most of the companies who have started their sustainability journey are having sustainability reports separately made, annual report separately made. It happens like that. It flows like that for a few years, and as the organization matures, it prepares only one report. Similarly, this is going to happen here also, when you will have one report. Sustainability review meetings will be done and a policy would be developed in which the vision statements would be separate initially, and then it will merge into the company vision statement when the company is in a position to have the vision imbibed in its original vision statement. Some companies do it from 0-1 and others keep it separate for sustainability and then merge it. Then exactly what is there, ensuring alignment with the company values and objectives, sustainability in the DNA. Now, there are certain ESG regulatory compliance where the company secretary, I think, can be a pivotal role, which is the keeping abreast of the ESG regulations and ensuring compliance. For example, today, the talk, how you can really push sustainability. There has to be some tool in your hand. It's not a magic that you will just go and talk sustainability in every meeting. No, you have to do something in your hand. And what form it will come in your hand? It will come from your hand what is happening in the business. You have to keep your eyes and ears open and study and find out what is happening in the sustainability journey. Today, the most important thing which is happening in sustainability journey is September 2023 onwards, carbon tax. For any company which has any exposure in Europe will know what is carbon tax. What is that? It's a cross-border tax. You are going to export. You are an export-oriented company. You are going to export your products to Europe. First barricade would be, are you coming from a country called India? Yeah. And what is the product you are making? Oh, it's a huge emission embedded product. So you'll have to pay 15% import tax. Otherwise, you are not allowing you entry. So your cost immediately goes up by 15% and you cannot compete. Because those homegrown products are already there taxing. They're saying, no, when you are taxing our people here, I will tax those people who are coming from outside and they are not following ESG standards. In that case, I will tax you 15%. Otherwise, what will happen? My company, my country, the producers will all run away to those emission havens. Emission havens means where you emitted, but you are not taxed. You go to those emission haven countries and start producing. What will happen? What is called carbon leakage. The environment gets polluted. The whole net zero concept or net reduction concept of the earth as a whole goes for a toss. People run around and go to emission havens. To stop that, carbon tax is going to come January 2026. To start with, they have identified 5 sectors. Cement, which is already giving now a lot of nightmares to the cement producers. Steel, aluminium, petrochemical, fertilizers, electricity. Now, these 5 sectors to start with, you never know what will happen. First time in the history, this is going to happen as of now. So who can drive this? Who can bring this fact to the board. So this is what is going to happen. This is in the Sustainability Risk Management Committee, a paper can be placed, note for the board. Discussion starts. What are we doing? We are today not directly coming into this. How we'll get, what is our exposure in Europe? What are you doing to reduce emission of the products? Because today emission of products doesn't come from product specific emissions. Today, we don't calculate emission for a product as a whole. We go by the grades. There may be 25 grades for one product, grades. Now you calculate the emission for each of these grades. Some grades have huge emissions, some grades have less emission. So can we export all these to countries like Europe, where there is less emission? Start thinking from now. So what have you done? You have triggered something which starts rolling, and thought process starts that way. The discussion goes that way. But who is the person who has triggered? It's the company secretary, because of his knowledge, because of his, of his understanding of the facts of the business. He knows this is going to happen. Few days back, first time I got a statement from a bank which says ESHS details. Immediately, I thought that it should be something with sustainability, because ES immediately throws in the mind environmental and social. And then I found out it is environmental, social, and health safety. 20 line items given. Be specific. What are you doing on this? Then I asked the treasury person who came with this, what for is he requiring? Find that out. Is it going to be difficult that if we can't produce all the details, the rate of interest would go up, go down? Or what is that? He said, no, they're just taking the stock now, sir. The central committee of the bank has said, take stock of where you are exposure. Why it is happening? It is happening from the pressure coming from the other side. The regulator is putting the pressure. Today morning, there has been a regulator like IRDA, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, today morning has given a statement saying that the IRDA will frame a board-approved ESG framework for the insurance companies. This is a landmark change. And they're quoting in that, saying that the present corporate governance guidelines do not imbibe the ESG norms adequately. And therefore, they want a separate ESG framework, board approved. So the pressure that is coming on the very important aspect is the reinsurance. Bank is asking for all these details. Today, the bank is not doing anything. You are giving all this data. They're capturing. And definitely day after tomorrow, I mean, maybe a few months, 1 year and there, they will charge asking more interest for you because you are not following the ESHS standards. They're helpless. They say, no, I can't. I have to charge you more interest. So you are losing. Your cost is going up. Your cost could have gone down. Your delta could have increased. You could have made more profitable growth. So ESG finally will lead to profitability. Another important aspect, perhaps not even discussed nowadays. Since I hate insurance, I'm looking into this deeply, and I'm going wherever I'm talking of this is reinsurance challenges. Whoever understands insurance will understand insurance is your front face. The back face is reinsurance. You insure your factories, but do you reinsure your factories? No. Reinsurance is done by the insurance company back to back with a Swiss Re or a Munich Re or a Hanover or our own homegrown GIC. These companies, the Swiss Re and Hanover and this the other one, they are all coming out with clear-cut mandate that we have been told by our rating agencies, S&P and others, that whatever exposure we have got in fossil fuel-based industries, petrochemicals and thermal power, 3 sectors, we have to be very cautious. We cannot take any more. Whatever we are done. We won't reinsure anymore. Now think of a situation where you have a factory, you have a thermal power plant, but you are not being able to insure that. Why? Because the insurance company is saying that I am not getting a reinsurer. There are instances where a particular insurance company refused to do insurance of at least 2 insurance companies in thermal power, because Swiss Re or Munich Re has refused to take them because they don't have the capacity to take. So it's a real challenge that we are dealing with industries which may not be insurable in the future. Right now, no challenge. Right now, they are only cautioning. And that to three sectors: thermal power, petrochemical, and there is one more, which is for this aluminium. These are the three sectors they are now cautioning. But gradually they will increase. So insurance aspect or the reinsurance aspect is also something which is very, very serious. Today, we are not really feeling the pinch because insurance companies are coming and they are not even discussing this. Why they are not discussing this? It's a question of their business. As long as long as we can make profit, let us make profit. Every insurance company makes profit. There's not a single insurance company which is into loss. So that they say that if I do like this, they don't insure with us, they go somewhere else, I lose business. But this is what is coming up, and this is another regulatory challenge, which is something which we need to take stock of. As company secretaries, again, these are some things we need to discuss with the Sustainability Risk Management Committee, if not with the full board, at least with the SRM and with the independent directors. Another important thing is always staying updated, understanding the business, life cycle assessments I have discussed, cradle to grave, and there are three aspects of emissions. There are three aspects of emission. Emissions can be further broken into three aspects. We often discuss this, but for non-technical people, perhaps it not be fair enough. But there are three stages of emission. One is scope 1, one is scope 2, one is scope 3. So any manufacturing unit, any business unit would have all these three. The first is when you are manufacturing a product inside the factory, the emission that is happening of GHG emissions, that is called scope 1. Your manufacturing process, straight away. The process of manufacturing, scope 1. So what is scope 2? The power that you are buying. For running the factory, you need to buy power. Unless you generate power, like us, we generate power. Therefore, we are power positive. In scope 2, we are always power positive because we generate power. PCBL generates power. We have a captive generation power plant, co-generation power plant, by which we generate power. So when that power is generated, we are positive on scope 2, but in scope 1, we are negative because we emit. We are a carbon black industry, we emit because in scope 1, we have emission. So scope 2 talks of power. When you buy power, there will be again an emission because what you're buying power is actually thermal power. The third is the most challenging one, which is not even discussed nowadays, because that is what is going to determine the ESG of the future. That is the scope 3, which is the supply chain, the entire supply chain ESG, starting from where you are starting the raw material buying, ending with the finished product. This is not life cycle. I'm talking of the emission. The emission that you are doing of your own product, that you are buying the raw material and selling the product. What is the emission? Capturing the emission. While you are buying maybe a particular raw material. That raw material is emitting. So that emission obviously will be considered production. Then for bringing that, you are bringing by ship. If you're bringing by ship, the burning of the oil that ship does, that emission has to be calculated. Now you are producing the product and sending to the customers. So that is transportation. That emission you have to calculate. There are 15 grades which EcoVadis and Dow Jones have calculated for the upstream and downstream. Upstream meaning when you are bringing the raw material, that's called upstream. When you are selling the finished products, you call it downstream. Both that upstream and downstream emission is one of the largest chunks. So on a pie of 100, normally it is found that around 50% would be scope 1, 20% would be scope 2, and 30% is scope 3. Some cases it is 50, 10, 40. So 30 to 40% is the most difficult one to, first of all, ascertain, and second, to reduce. It's very difficult. And think of a situation what is happening today. The Suez Canal. Ships coming, say, we import. Therefore, I know what is happening. When you're importing from the US Gulf Coast, they are just to come to the Suez Canal. And Suez Canal means Mediterranean Sea connecting Europe and Asia, the shortest route. Instead of that, they are taking the Cape of Good Hope, tip of South Africa. So what is the nautical miles extra they are going? 10 to 12 days nautical miles extra. Just think of whole day the ship is going 24 hours at the speed of 30 nautical miles for 10 to 12 days. Think of the amount of emission it is doing. Force measure. I can't do it. If I don't come through that route and come through this route, I'm not insured. But insurance companies are not insuring you. They're saying, no, we'll not insure you because you are taking a route which is susceptible to high war risk. So I will not take that. So if I have to come through that route, I go uninsured. If I take the other route, I go insured but burn lot of oil and increase the emission, but I'm helpless. My scope 3 is going to go up. It's a force measure. We live in this world of VUCA. We call it the VUCA world, right? Uncertain, totally uncertain. Today we don't know how when it will end. So these are the emissions of scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And scope 3 is the most challenging one. And somebody says sometimes that people living nearby should walk to office to reduce scope 3 emission. Europe, there are certain companies, small companies, where employees are encouraged to come cycling to reduce emission. I mean, these are possible, but maybe small reduction can happen. But large scale reduction like this, suddenly something happens and it go haywire. Cost is one aspect. Freight cost has doubled. You don't get the vessel. That is another aspect. But what about the emission? How it is, redefining the world. So these are again, these are all discussion points which the company secretary can deliberate and find out. The supposing next year the scope 3 goes up and your SRM risk management committee might say, hi, your scope 3 has gone up. What is the reason? Share beforehand. So this may be the reason. Any way you want to discuss this, so we can discuss that and ask the SRM for their views in the matter, because they're doing for so many companies. They're in the board of so many companies. Maybe some of them are engaged in the vessel, some of them engaged in the transportation. So they come up with ideas. At the same time, you are also sharing with them what is your apprehension. And nothing really stops you, encourages you to share all these things with the SRM. Stakeholder engagement. This is another very important area for a company secretary. I think he is the best fit to engage with the stakeholders, particularly the large chunk financial institution holders. It is important that you continuously engage with them to find out what are the risks they are perceiving, how they are perceiving the risks. And once the risks are perceived, you have to find it that in this ESG, how they are factored in this risk in, where they are factored in, and what management measures you are taking for that. It is important to find out the risk management practices also. Therefore, I say that sustainability and risk management must go hand in hand. Otherwise, there'll be some gaps. You have to have another management committee meeting. There'll be a gap. The same people, they're sitting in the sustainability committee and they're also in the risk management committee. You have the same set of independent directors chairing it and also being a part of it. It is always good. Reporting and disclosure, I think these are all our areas. We are core areas. BRSR is one thing. But again, according to me, BRSR again is a tick book as of now, is a tick box item. I feel that audit of this should happen at a full scale and it should happen soon so that there is no greenwashing anywhere. If you have an incident happening in your factory, if you have cases happening in your factory, you should always disclose. That better to disclose. As far as I understand my interaction with the rating agencies, they always find suspicion in companies which are not disclosing, and which are disclosing, they have more comfort with them because the company is disclosing the facts. Even if there's one incident of reported of an harassment case, you report that what action has been taken. If there has been one case of integrity issues, that has to be included, ethical issues that have to be included. It is better to include, and of course, it's not that creating any panic or raising unnecessary doubts. The entire statement of facts should be done, how the ethics committee has looked into it, what has been the conclusion, what steps have been taken, all can be reported, and that is what the rating agencies want. I mean, why again and again I call the rating agencies, because they are really driving it as far as the institutional investors are concerned, and based on them, the institutional investors are looking into the ESG roadmap of an organization, and they are also having a pressure of making investments in those companies which are following ESG practices and disclosing those ESG disclosures. Risk management, as I go on saying, ESG and related risks and opportunities are huge. I have personally seen that when you drive ESG, you get a lot of opportunities coming out of it. We never thought of alternative procurement. We always thought of there will be only 4 or 5 suppliers. But when we look through the lens of ESG, when you start looking for through the lens of ESG, you find there are other opportunities as well. You reinvent yourself, you revisit yourself, you rethink yourself, and yourself meaning your procurement team, your purchase team, your raw materials team, they all think over and they find out alternatives. And these alternatives are so, I would say, interesting, and they add to the bottom line that you continue with them. Perhaps if you have not looked through the lens of ESG, you would have never come out with all these alternatives. So recycled raw materials, renewable energies, recycled products. Today, a lot of the products that we are producing, they are end products. They are end products. When they are finally, they in the end life cycle, when they do a life cycle end assessment, they find out these products at the end can be reused. Though, of course, the quality will not be the same, but at least at a moderate quality. There are products which are of high quality, which will use for certain purposes, medium quality of certain purposes, and some products which are of general category. In the general and medium category, these end products can be used. Recycled products, we call them. This can be used. We never thought of using these products unless we had the pressure of looking into life cycle assessments, recycling. All this brought out this, including the research and innovation. So the drive of ESG has resulted into all this happening, and a huge element of research and innovation is going into, even now, is going into our plants for finding out better methods of production so that the emission goes down, better methods of running the plants so that the emission goes out. But why these investments are being done? It is not getting money right now. It is all investments which are being put right now. The returns may not come, may come. But even if it doesn't come, the efforts that are going, the revelations which are coming, the learnings that are happening are huge, which are used in other aspects. So this research and innovation is another tool which has gone a long way in making ESG profitable. ESG and profitability has become synonymous, and it is no longer a fact that ESG, if you drive, it might not lead into profitability. It is absolutely leading into profitability. Another area where I think the company secretaries do play a big role is training and giving awareness among the employees, and also integrating, because every function has to get integrated in a sustainability journey, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is marketing, whether it is finance, whether it is procurement, whether it is HR, whether it is any IT. Every function has to get involved. And company secretary, because of his access that he has been actually getting data from all the departments and preparing his board report, annual report, sustainability report, BRSR, he has access to all the departments. And therefore, he is the best person to collect all this information and ensure that the sustainability review report or the integrated report, whatever you are preparing, is absolutely data driven. Least human intervention is there. It is the data is flowing and the information is flowing. Wherever there is data needs to be, human intervention is required. He should see to it, ensure there is no biasness is there. Total transparency is there, because if an audit happens at any point of time, we'll be able to satisfy that this is why the human intervention was required. So that is another area where the company secretary collaboration naturally comes to a CS, because without the collaboration aspect, you will never can come out with the annual report, because annual report actually is a collaborative statement. It's a statement of all departments coming together and taking the shape of an annual report. And he has been spearheading this for all these years. So I think for sustainability review report or ESG report, he is the best fit to do this collaboration. As I was talking of capacity building, providing training and education in the sustainability issues, best practices, he is again is I think the best person, because he makes things clear, he understands the things, and he also makes it believable and achievable. Because he's not coming from the hardcore technical side. Technical people would be talking of only technical things, putting out intensity formulas and all those things, which perhaps people would not be able to take at the very first take, because you will be interacting across employees so that they are aware of what we are doing, driving the ESG journey, making them aware and making it happen. All that can happen with the CS can do that, I think, the best speed. We have already discussed this reduce, recycle, and reuse, the 3 Rs, the mantra of 3R. Now, I already said that ESG and profitability, it is 3P to 5P. Now, what is this 3P? The 3P was to the earlier one of people, planet, and profit. We always used to talk of people, planet, and profit. Now, the profit has been replaced by the word called prosperity. People, planet, prosperity, and then partnership and peace. This is the 5P. This is SDG, not my formula, SDG formula. No longer people are talking of people, planet, and profit. Profit is not the right word right now. So they're talking of prosperity. The moment you talk of prosperity, is actually nothing but PGA, profitable growth for all. So ESG and profitability leads to profitable growth for all, which is a 5P formula: people, planet, prosperity, partnership, and peace. I would end my presentation by saying, according to me, I feel I have done it through my own, journey in this organization, that CF is the best fit for driving sustainability and ESG journey. Basically, for 3 reasons: he is a chief compliance officer, he is a chief risk officer, and he is a chief ethical officer as well, or ethics officer as well. It's not chief executive, chief ethics officer. So a person who fits into all these three obviously is the only person who can drive sustainability in an organization. CCO plus CRO plus chief ethics officer. I think that with this, I will end my presentation. I would like to take questions as many as possible. Shall I stop? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes. You can
Yeah.
shoot the questions if there are any.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for those valuable insights and guiding us through the intricacies of ESG and the role of company secretaries in this domain. So, yeah, we've received a few questions. The first question is, many professionals in the industry, especially those who are not company secretaries, often confuse the term CSR with ESG. So, if a company secretary, like our participants, were to explain this term to a non-company secretary, how should they do so?
Can you just repeat the last sentence? I was taking the message. I was
Sure.
missed out. Just sorry for that. Just one
Yeah.
more.
I'm saying if a company secretary were to explain the difference between CSR and ESG to a
Oh,
non-company secretary,
yeah,
how should
yeah,
he?
yeah. So you see, company secretaries know the difference between CSR and ESG. Now he has to explain that to a non-company secretary. The best thing to ask him is that what does he feel of CSR? So he will definitely say, well, CSR means donation, CSR means charity. Non-company secretary. Nah, he will first thing he will say donation. He will make say charity. He will make him do good for the cause, for the good for the people. Build up something for the people around your factory. All these are CSRs, right? Now, what is ESG? I think I think in my presentation I have made very clear that in the entire journey of the presentation I have never used the word CSR except once. And CSR basically to a non-person would be saying, look, corporate social responsibility is what you say is right, largely donation, charity, helping others, taking your profits and doing some projects. But what are you doing specifically to reduce the emission that you are doing in the production process? Like the question that GT asked, I shared. The GT said that you are doing CSR, fine, you do CSR, you go on doing CSR. But what are you doing to reduce your emission? Has CSR told anywhere that you reduce your emission in your production by this much percentage by this much year? Has CSR anywhere said that while you use your water, please see to it if this water, what you are using, can be reduced? Or please see to it the water that you are discharging in the river, can that discharge be done after treating that water? No. CSR say, fine, people have been affected by your water. Please set up an ambulance, set up a hospital so that people can be treated. Does it make sense? Ask the person who has asked the question. I repeat, I'm using water, I'm releasing it in the river nearby, right? And Because of that, there is contamination. People are getting affected. Therefore, what is happening? People are running. Panchayat is coming saying, "Sir, आपके लिए कुछ हो रहा है, आप एक तो hospital कर दीजिए." वो hospital जो मैंने किया, वो मेरा CSR हो गया. But waste reduction का क्या किया? Water treatment का क्या किया? उसके लिए क्या responsibility मैं ले रहा हूँ? See, ESG wants that to happen. It wants to kill at the root so that you don't damage in any way or reduce what you are doing to the society. Over and above that, do the CSR. You continue to do the CSR. That's the good. You are doing for the CSR, but don't damage and do CSR. Please stop what you are doing. You are emitting, reduce your emission. You are you are releasing untreated water. Please treat the water. You are releasing untreated waste. Please reuse the waste. You are not taking care of the employees. Employees are not getting properly paid. Your health of the workers are poor. Your workers are suffering. And around the factory, you are planting trees. You are giving sweets. You are partnering with them in any function they are associated with. You are donating profusely, but inside your own factory, your employees are not happy. Your employees are not getting adequate medical treatment. Your female employees are not getting proper washrooms and other hygiene aspects are there, but outside you are doing CSR. So CSR, first of all CSR definition is, you anything do inside the factory, that is not CSR. You have to do everything outside the factory, right? If you set up a pharmacy within the factory, it is not CSR. You set a factory outside the factory and treat the people outside, fine. So who will treat the people inside? People inside will be treated by the social factors, which also includes the community. If you have read it, there's only one aspect of CSR which is there. In the social factor, it is talking of community at large around the fact. So if you see ESG in a broader term, if ESG is 10, CSR is 1. So CSR is imbibed in ESG in some form or the other. Is it clear? ESG is an ocean. CSR is a river. Is it clear? I don't think I can talk to the person who has raised the question. So I'm asking you the question. So if you are clear, I'm clear.
Yes, sir, it's absolutely clear. So the second question pertains to cost cutting, which you had already taken up in your presentation. How can ESG measures really help in cost cutting for an organization?
ESG, I have given so many examples. Yeah. I have said you reduce. Let me give one example. Say you are having paper bags as your package material, right? Many times what happens, these big paper bags, 1000 kg, which can go inside, these are torn and you immediately throw it away. That's one way of looking at it. What happens? They have plastic element. The plastic is poisonous. It will kill the environment. So what you are doing, first of all, you ensure why it is getting so fast needs to be respected. When you see that, you see there is a maintenance problem there. It's not being maintained, not being kept properly. So you look into the keeping. Second, can it be reused in some way or the other for the second lot without affecting the customer, obviously? Third, before destroying it, see to it whether it can be by any way treated so that it is not in the form, the way you are releasing. Maybe you are getting some money out of it, scrap. Don't do that. Reuse, retreat that, and so that when it goes out, it is in a form which will not, pollute the environment. That is what is important. That is why it is important that you reuse the thing. Sometimes some oil spills are there, oil leakages are there. If you define that oil leakages, you will find there is some element of maintenance which is failing because of the leakages are happening. And again, those oils which are leaked and leakages are there here and there. If you collect all those oils, and it can become easily reusable. So to some extent, it reduces the cost. ESG drives many ways, research and innovation. As I told you, when you do a lot of research and innovations, you find out that there are materials which can be produced with less emission and having high value, which you have never looked into before because you have not driven that, you have not gone through the process of doing R&I on this. Procurement, hugely benefited by ESG measures. We have been procuring from certain sources where emission is very high. The journey is very high. It is coming from distant places. Whereas locally, even if your best efforts, you have not been able to find out, but now you have been able to locate few suppliers who are not readily available for you. But if you give your expertise to them, they will produce products which will be customized for you, your raw material, at a much lesser cost. So you're saving on the emission of bringing the product from a distance. Any distance means emission, whether by road or by rail or by water, means emission. You are getting it from a nearby raw material because you have done a thorough search driving ESG. That can I get some material which is less emission, at the same time cost matching or little higher is okay. But you got finally a product which is lesser than the one that you are buying. So material cost goes down. Yep.
Okay, sir. So the company secretaries usually have to explain to the top management how to reduce cost for the organization. So I think that's why people had asked this question. Now, the third question is, what checks and balances should a company have in place to avoid the accusation of greenwashing?
Well, the company secretary is the best fit to ensure that data that flows from the system driven and human intervention is less. Because normally what we have seen that if something is SAP driven or it is coming from the data that is put in and based on audits which have done, this greenwashing doesn't have. Other aspect is there should be a basic culture of an organization, which is very difficult. If the culture of an organization again here is top driven, if you allow people to fail, if you allow people to report losses, if you allow people to make mistakes, if you allow them to make experiments, greenwashing will not be there. Sometimes people are given targets to reduce. They are unable to match that. Stress targets. Force major reasons they are unable to do. Then what they will do is they will do something fudging and they will give you a figure. I've kept my target. And finally, what you have done is greenwashing. Allow them to fail. Bring that culture that yes, your efforts also are being recognized. Then this greenwashing will go. Greenwashing is a mindset. It's totally mindset. But the culture should be that we don't encourage greenwashing. We don't actually encourage people who do not come out with facts. If you fail, fine. We'll have second time. But don't come out with figures which will put us into embarrassment later on, because every figure gets audited. It happens. 1 year you do a greenwashing. Next year, when the real thing happens, you find there is a dip. So this year you have made up the target, but next year there is a dip. Had you not made up the target next year by greenwashing, actually target would have been low. This year actually have performed very well. That performance level for the next year actually goes down because of the greenwashing you did last year. So this is again something which needs to be explained, and the CS can do that very well. Being the chief ethics officer, to me he is the chief ethics officer.
Okay, sir. So what's the status of ESG audit in India? Like, do we see an expanded scope of audit for company secretaries?
As of now, I think the ESG audit is a very nascent stage, and talks are going on. But if you ask me, yes, company secretaries can be excellent auditors for ESG, and it doesn't require a highly technical firm to do that. And we can do a good amount of job in this respect. Maybe some training may be required, which would be institute obviously have got an ICSI ESG board is there, of which I'm also a member. So these discussions are going on, and definitely ESG audit is an area for us. I have no doubt in that mind.
So there are many practicing company secretaries who have joined us. So their concern is, what is the scope of ESG for them, for practicing company secretaries?
As of now, I would say just you are, as I always say, you are sitting on the other side. So you are going into the companies. Many of them have company secretaries, don't have company secretaries. So please start the journey of ESG. Educate those companies that make them aware and tell them finally, end of the day, it will be profitable, and it will be profitable. And you can show them instances that there are data to prove that companies who have followed ESG, their ratings, their market cap, their profitability have gone up than companies who have not followed. And start with low-hanging fruits. Don't bring too many things, too many material topics. Take 1, 2, and 3, and the low-hanging one. People want to see results first. That's a human psychology. You don't go for the big ones. You go and find out from those companies which are the areas they can work on and reduce the emission, at the same time increase profitability. And the rest will follow.
So the next question is, what measures should a company adopt for collection of ESG data? Because sometimes it can become very cumbersome when there are multiple metrics involved, each for environmental, social, and governance aspect of ESG. So
In course of time, I think many companies are doing, we are also in the midst of, it should be driven by IT. Entire thing should be driven by IT. If you have an emission coming from factory X for a particular unit and a particular reactor, that should be captured. Today you have, by the time, I think you should know that today in many pollution control boards, they have got online monitoring system of the factories. It's not a new thing. Your factory at certain points, they have put monitor emission levels. And their monitoring is 24 into 7, 365 days in their sitting in their offices at the pollution control board. Online monitoring is being done. We have in two of our factories an online monitoring system. So the pollution control board doing it from their office, sitting in 50 kilometers away from you. So you sitting in your office, or a factory manager, a chief manager, chief of operations can always monitor that what is happening and get the data. That's not a big challenge. That is not at all a challenge getting data. Only thing, you must have your IT and your systems in place. It may require some investment for small companies. For big companies, 1,000 listed companies or 500 listed companies, I don't think there should be a problem in capturing data. Only thing, it requires some streamlining and this thing, support of the IT.
Sir, what are the possible ESG considerations for a company in BFSI sector? I think you had already talked about insurance companies. So in the banking, financial, and insurance company sector, I think the dilemma here more is related to the E part of ESG.
And banking is basically, if you say energy, of course, is everybody there. You are running an office, you have electrical energy, you have scope 3 is there for all companies. As I told you, scope 1 may not be there. You're not a manufacturing industry. Scope 2 there, you're buying power, you're running the bank, so you're buying some amount of power, paying electricity bills, right? And then scope 3 is a big one because all your employees are coming and they're going, you're having so many travels, all those things are happening. So yes, there are scope 2 and scope 3, there are opportunities. As regards scope, as regards huge. Banks are huge, and I find a lot of diversity in bank. They're scoring very high scores in the gender diversity. So there is huge scope, but governance, again, with all said and done, I think in many of the banks, I don't find that the independent director's position is fully filled up. That may be one of the cases of challenge for them. But as you said, rightly, the person was making a sense that as regards E, I think as regards E, the scope 1 is totally gets eliminated. That's why I made a demarcation of scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 under E. So scope 1 is totally not there, but scope 2 is hugely there. Scope 3 is also there. Maybe scope 3 is not that aspect because you're not buying raw materials or selling finished products, but your employees are coming and going. You are making travels, you are going, visiting so many places. So all this needs to be captured and reduced. More and more virtual meetings, more and more this kind of sessions are all those targets they can take.
Okay, so the last question for the day is that many big companies already have safety officers. There's a separate EHS department. There is even a chief sustainability officer. So how should a company secretary make himself or herself relevant among all these people in the domain of ESG?
None of them have the proximity that you have, my friend, the proximity to the board. That single point holds you above everything. And that is where you have to play your role. That I am the company secretary, I have proximity to the board. I will make the board aware. I will give the board the best practices. I will bring the best practices and I will encourage my board to drive the sustainability, and I will ensure that the best practices are followed in my organization. There can be a chief sustainability officer. We also have a chief sustainability officer. But that doesn't in any way, that is beneficial for you, because that will be one way of your single point of contact, what is happening in the sustainability journey of the company. But your role as a company secretary and proximity of the board and bringing the best practices to drive sustainability is totally there. It no way contradicts with that position. As regards health and safety, these are all very specialized subjects. You can always have your ears and eyes open what is happening in this. If there is an incident of health and safety hazard, then look into that and find out why it has happened. and what steps were taken to prevent it. Is there any lacuna? Make a report before the Sustainability Risk Management Committee. Ask the Chief Sustainability Officer, make a presentation before the board, why this safety thing happened and what steps you are doing. So you are taking the role of making actually things happen, the facilitator, right? So it's a great journey. I mean, journey of driving sustainability. And let me tell you, this you feel passionate after you drive sometimes that you are doing something which is actually for the better good and the larger good. So it is not that something you are doing for for very any other matter, but it is for a growth for all, profitable growth for all. You feel a sense of satisfaction when you drive sustainability in an organization. Thank you so much. So this is the last question I thought. So thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Anything else?
Thank you very much, sir, for addressing those queries. So with this, we come to the conclusion of this webinar. I'd like to thank all the participants for joining us and actively participating in this webinar. We have close to 5,500 participants who have joined us today. And also, I would like to mention here that this is the last webinar in the EEE series, but we'll soon be back with another version of the Master Knowledge webinar series, most likely in the month of April, upon approval of the Corporate Laws and Governance Committee of ICSI. Also, these webinars are uploaded on the YouTube channel of the Institute, so you can always go back and watch these webinars as and when you may require so. Finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed speaker, C.S. Kaushik Mukherjee, for his enlightening session. Sir, your session has provided us with a comprehensive understanding of the evolving landscape of ESG considerations, emphasizing the integral role of company secretaries in the realm of ESG practices and corporate responsibility. Thank you once again, sir, for your time and dedication for imparting this knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Keep learning and keep striving for excellence.